As long as you are convinced you have never done anything, you can never do anything. Malcolm X. Welcome to the We Don't Believe You podcast series. Our mission is to neutralize and dispel the false narratives, negative images, and disparaging stereotypes that have been perpetuated about Black people through various media outlets for centuries. Each week, we will highlight stories of Black excellence, greatness, and success of the past, present, and future, all of which share one common trait. They chose not to believe the negative images or stereotypes that said they couldn't succeed, but instead achieved massive success in spite of them. And now, here's your host, Brian McCoy.
Peace. My name is Brian McCoy, and I am the proprietor and the host of the We Don't Believe You podcast series. Our mission is to dispel and to reverse the false negative narratives, negative stereotypes, and images that have been perpetuated about and against Black people in America for centuries. We do this by highlighting positive Black images of individuals who chose not to believe those false negative narratives or stereotypes, but instead chose to succeed in spite of them. Another mission of the show is to highlight the issues and problems that disproportionately and adversely affect the Black community, and more importantly, discuss and start to implement solutions to some of these problems. So this episode is my appeal to you all. It is my sincere and wholehearted belief that Black people in America are in a very serious crisis, and frankly have been for some time. In my travels and in my experiences, I've come across Black people who, because they have a few bucks, big car, the big house, fancy job, they think that Black people ain't in no crisis. Look at how I'm living. Black people ain't in no crisis.
The mentality seems to be, I got mine. So if there is a Black crisis, it ain't got nothing to do with me.
I've also come across in my travels some white people who deny the existence of a Black crisis in America simply because they can't relate to the Black experience in America. I've actually even heard some say, what crisis? How big of a crisis could you be in when you had a Black president, for crying out loud? A crisis is defined as a difficult or dangerous time in which a solution is needed and quickly. I will submit evidence to you today that we are in a very serious crisis and immediate action needs to be taken. My appeal to you is that after I submit this evidence and after you've carefully reviewed the evidence, if you do not believe that Black people are in a crisis after the evidence, then by all means, I wish you all the best, and please feel free to, delete me or block me or whatever you need to do so that you don't have to hear my nonsense anymore. However, if after the evidence I submit, you agree that Black people in America are in a very serious crisis, if you agree that immediate action needs to be taken, if you recognize the fact that no one can or will be able to do this for us, no one is coming to save us or our children, and that we have to do it ourselves. And if you want to discuss discuss and open the conversation and be a part of finding and implementing solutions to our problems, then please like, share, comment, and subscribe to our podcast and become a part of a collective, a community that seeks to have these discussions and implement solutions to these problems to help restore us to the proper place of excellence and greatness where we once were in our true history. So without further ado, I'd like to submit into evidence Exhibit A. So Exhibit A, the suicide rate is increasing faster among Black adolescents between the ages of 10 and 19 years of age, faster than any other racial group. Now, happens to be an increase of 58% since 2018. So essentially, our youth are literally taking their own lives at a faster rate than any other group. This, in and of itself, is a serious crisis. I'm sure you agree it's a serious problem. So let's talk about solutions. Let's propose, let's talk about, let's see what we can do to implement some solutions to this very serious problem. Exhibit B. According to the 2023 United States Census, non-Hispanic Black people represent roughly 14% of the United States population. But according to the Bureau of Prisons, we represent roughly 38% of the incarcerated population.
According to the American Civil Liberties Union, 1 out of every 3 black boys born today can expect to go to jail or prison in their lifetimes. Now, this is compared with 1 out of every 6 Latino boys and 1 out of every 17 white boys can expect to go to jail or prison during their lifetime. 1 out of every 3 black boys born today can expect to go to jail or prison during their lifetimes.
Now, while we represent 38% of the incarcerated population versus the 14% that we represent in the country, we represent only 5% of all lawyers in the country, according to the American Bar Association. We represent roughly 5.6% of all doctors in the country, according to the National Medical Association. We represent only 3.8% of all the engineers in the country and 1.9% of all certified financial planners. One of the only major statistics in which our presence or representation dramatically exceeds the percentage of the population that we represent are the incarceration rates. The very infrastructure of this country is built on money or finances, the law, health and healthcare. With the small percentages that we represent in each of these fields, we don't even have seats at the tables where these conversations are had, decisions are made that impact our lives. We're not even present in the rooms. We're not sitting at the table where these conversations are being had. And again, I'm sure you agree that this is a serious problem. Let's talk about solutions to this problem. Let's talk about how we can change this problem.
Let's talk about how we can shift the numbers so that we decrease the black incarcerated population and at the same time increase the numbers of black lawyers, doctors, engineers, architects, entrepreneurs, CEOs, plumbers, electricians. Let's decrease the number of the black incarcerated population and shift those numbers into some of these industries which gain us a position and a seat at the table.
Exhibit C. After having undergone slavery and Jim Crow, another major serious blow to the black community was the crack epidemic. During the crack epidemic, entire neighborhoods, entire communities were decimated and destroyed. Hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of families torn apart. Heads of households eliminated due to incarceration and or addiction. Some of the incarceration issues stem from the fact that there were mandatory minimum sentencing guidelines,
which created disparities in sentencing for possession of powder cocaine versus crack cocaine. Crack cocaine being more prevalent in black and brown communities.
Again, we had no seats at the table. This crack epidemic left hundreds of thousands of mostly black and brown children in these same decimated inner cities to stew in the same poverty, same violence, same lack of education, same lack of opportunity, left them to fend for themselves. And sadly, they were left all alone. We are now on the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren of the crack epidemic. And to this day, these same children are still left alone.
And the only time anyone mentions them is to point fingers at them to say it's a damn shame how crazy these kids are today. But very few ever stop to think or ask why.
Interestingly enough, however, in 2022, the Biden-Harris administration passed an executive order in which they awarded more than $1.6 billion to be allocated to the states through various programs for opioid crisis recovery. Now, I could be wrong. I doubt it. But not a nickel was allocated to any of these broken, torn, decimated communities for a crack epidemic crisis recovery.
Obviously, this is not to make light of the opioid crisis or the severity of it. My heart and my prayers go out to each and every individual and family that has been affected by the opioid crisis. My most sincere condolences go to the families who've lost anyone to this very serious opioid crisis. But from a basic equal protection standpoint, can we get some hearts and prayers and allocations of recovery funds sent out to these communities that were ravaged by and are still reeling to this day from the crack epidemic?
As I mentioned, we will have to save ourselves. We will have to save our own children. No one can and no one will come to save us or do it for us. Obviously, Exhibit C is a serious problem. But let's talk about solutions. These are just 3 pieces of evidence to demonstrate that we in the black community in the United States are in a serious crisis and in need of action and solutions immediately. So if after these 3 pieces of evidence you are still not convinced, don't believe, choose not to believe, don't want to believe that we are in a crisis, then stay tuned. And I will submit further evidence. Further evidence that says that black women are 6 times more likely to be murdered in the United States than white women, largely in part due to domestic violence. I'll submit further evidence that black women are 3 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related complications than white women. Evidence that shows prostate cancer deaths in black men are more than double those of every other racial group. Or what about an education system that neglects to teach all of our children, black, white, Latinx, etc., fails to teach all children about the contributions that black people have made to society, the achievements and the accomplishments that black people have made, which built this country. Malcolm X said, as long as you're convinced that you have never done anything, you can never do anything. By leaving out this history, oftentimes our children are left convinced that we have never done anything. This is a problem. And again, all I want to do is talk about the solutions. It is impossible to discuss and arrive at a solution to any problem without acknowledging a problem as a problem. Here, we acknowledge the problems. We acknowledge the issues, and more importantly, again, we seek and search to find and implement solutions to the problems. I don't profess to be a black leader. I don't profess to have these solutions myself. And again, I don't profess to be any type of a black leader, but I am a black man that's been living in America for 45 years. I recognize that my kids, your grandchildren, great grandchildren will have to live in this world long after we are gone. If we do something about it, however big or small, if we make an effort, if we do something, if we come together, talk about the problems, talk about solutions, implement some solutions, we can make a change. We can change the dynamic. We can shift the dynamic. But if we do nothing, we don't talk about it, we don't address the problems, we don't search for solutions, we don't seek out solutions, we do nothing about it.
One thing we can guarantee is that
then we send our children, great-grandchildren, and great-great-grandchildren tied into the same mess. But unfortunately, by the time we get to great-grandchildren, the mess will be even worse. The late great Moms Mabley said that if you always do what you always did, you will always get what you always got. So let's look at what we've been doing. A lot of what we've been doing is going against each other, fighting each other, killing each other, tearing each other down, tearing each other apart, hating each other. So now the important question is, look at what we've been getting. I mean, the statistics that we just reviewed, the evidence that we just reviewed. What have we been getting with what we've been doing? Again, if we always do what we always did, we will always get what we always got. If we want something different, and that's who I'm talking to, is those that want something different. If we want something different, we are going to have to do something different. I don't know who said it, but it is one of my favorite quotes in all the world. A society grows great when its old men and women are willing to plant trees under the shade of which they will never sit. If not for ourselves, if we don't plant these trees for ourselves to sit under, let's begin to at least plant these trees for our children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, etc. I invite you all to join us, join a community. Let's talk about little or unknown Black history. Let's talk about Black greatness, Black accomplishments, Black achievements, Black excellence, Black success. Let's celebrate and let's promote positive Black images. Let's talk about the issues that affect us. And more importantly, let's talk about solutions. Join us. Like, comment, share, subscribe. And I look forward to making great stuff happen together. Peace.
peace. This very first episode and the entire podcast series is dedicated to the memory of and in honor of my second father, my godfather. He was a role model and a major inspiration for my drive and desire to uplift the Black community. He was a husband, a father, a community leader, advocate, and activist. He was a role model and a source of motivation and inspiration for many. He was the very first Black county legislator elected to the Board of Legislators in Westchester County, New York. He was also one of the greatest men I ever had the pleasure and the opportunity to know. He was the Honorable Mr. Herman Keith, who was recently called from labor to reward. I just wanted to tell him that job well done, and a life well lived. And may you rest in eternal peace. And thank you for everything. This episode in this entire podcast series is also dedicated to the memory of my main man since before I was born. He was my god brother, my very first friend in the world, my brother, Jamal Keith, who was Mr. Herman Keith's son. Jamal was a father, a brother, a friend who dedicated his entire life to caring for and providing for his daughter, who's my goddaughter, Analia Keith, and also preparing and caring for his fiancée, who I now call my sister, Miss Edna Tavares. Sadly, Jamal passed away while Edna was pregnant with their youngest daughter, Ava. So, unfortunately, he never got the chance to meet her. But I just wanted to tell you to sleep in peace. And you could rest easy, good brother, because the universe nor you could have chosen a better mother for your children. Your daughters are immersed in strong, beautiful, powerful, intelligent women. In your mother, your sister, Edna, and Analia. Also, just wanted to let you know that Analia is doing great in life. Other than the fact that we all miss you terribly, all is well, and I just wanted to let you know that God got it covered down here. So rest easy, and we all love you and miss you terribly. So sleep easy and rest in peace, good brother. I love you. Peace.
Thanks for listening to the We Don't Believe You podcast with your host, Brian McCoy. We hope you feel enlightened and empowered by our show. Please visit our YouTube channel at We Don't Believe You and our socials at We Don't Believe You on Facebook and Nah Don't Believe You on Twitter X. Please subscribe and share our podcast. Peace.